You're listening to the Mid Morning Show on Salam Media with Maria Mukwanda. It is 7 minutes after 11, and joining me in studio is Shahista Thokan, a transformational coach at Silver Lining Workshop Facilitation and Transformational Coaching. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shahista, and shukran for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah for having me, Mariam. It's such a pleasure being here.
Alhamdulillah, it's a pleasure having you. All right, first of all, before we get into the youth workshops that you wanted to chat about, let's talk about issues affecting the youth in general. I mean, obviously, you have identified these problems, which is why you have decided to have youth workshops.
No, sure. I think one of the biggest challenges we've had from last year into this year is the huge gap in their education and their routine from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, kids are used to being occupied to a certain extent of their day, and therefore their exposure then to technology or maybe certain other aspects of their home life is limited. So now with last year being what it was, with a disrupted school year and then homeschooling and parents thrown in the mix of the education part, I think a lot of kids had a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. I mean, we can't even begin to think about our matriculants last year and what they went through. It does have a ripple effect into their lives going forward. And if you look at this year, where things have started to slowly normalize in terms of education and a system that is working now in the COVID pandemic, be it alternate days or alternate weeks, there is some sort of education happening in the correct way. And I think it's eased the burden of parents, and then the frustrations at home and the situations at home have started also to get into some sort of a routine. So the kids are finding their feet. And very early on the onset of this year, I said to myself, who's there to actually help them or coach them through the stressful time? A lot of parents are not equipped to do so. A lot of parents have their own struggles, be it their challenges that they faced with their work situation last year. So, alhamdulillah, the idea of the youth development workshop came into being, and the topics were actually prompted by a lot of queries and parents that reached out.
All right, let's discuss those topics because even prior to the pandemic, there were issues that were affecting the youth, and maybe not so spoken of much, but now, parents were able to identify because of having to actually stay with their kids at home. So let us talk about those topics. What are they?
So prior to the pandemic, these issues that were identified in children were very isolated. They were individualized, whereas now, because it affected everyone in the same way, it almost became like a mass issue. One of the very first topics that I tackle in the youth development workshop is that of stress and anxiety management. As young as 6-year-olds to as old as 17-year-olds, I formed different gender groups and age groups on different days so that I can harness and hone in really on that particular age group and their idea and definition of these topics. So a lot of times we don't generally just group them as anxious because it is a health disorder. However, you do see the panic when it comes to maybe their day-to-day functioning at school and at home. And parents do pick up on this irregularity, if you may call it that. One of the other topics that I deal with is self-confidence and expression. And I think prior to the show, we were talking about just being with their siblings so much and not socializing with their peers as much. What we found is sibling rivalry that happened, dominance. A lot of children were being bullied. And that would be the third topic that I'm offering is peer pressure and bullying, because it's one in the same. Whether you're being bullied by a parent, a sibling, or a peer, it actually fits into the same bracket of how does the child feel like a victim. And I think just getting them to be more functioning in that caliber of confidence and expression would help the aspect of not being identified as weak or, easily to pick on.
All right. So it seems like there's a pattern with all of these issues that the youth are facing. I mean, with the self-confidence, the self-expression, not being able to express themselves, leading to bullying, leading to peer pressure because they want to try and fit in. And I wanted to actually say that sometimes kids would use school as a means for them to escape
Yeah.
from the bullying or anything else that is happening at home. But then
Definitely.
sometimes also the bullying is happening at school and it's also happening at home. So then they don't have an escape. So how do you work around that as a parent?
So, as you said, it's very drastic situations where it's either the home life that environment needs to be fixed, or it's the school life where the actual bullying and incidents are happening.
Mm-hmm.
So the cross between the two is, whereas last year they were only in their home environments, and the stress and pressure of that was they needed to be disciplined in a certain way, or maybe parents that were remote working had their children behave in a certain way during those hours, which maybe made them feel very frustrated and very internalizing a lot of their emotions because they could not release it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas at school, if you look at how our school days are structured, we have work time, we have play time for socializing, and then we have subjects that allow that free expression and talk, such as life skills and so forth. So in that sense, where I would say bridging that gap between the two is very difficult, but it is very necessary, because this is their pattern for 12 years of their life. This is what they know and they should be able to adapt to. And this environment is where we actually pay most attention to, as I said. When it comes to certain children from disadvantaged backgrounds, what we find is school is their escape, because they may have been harassed, or certain incidents of vice abuse like alcohol and so forth in terms of their neighborhood or their their parents and that sort of lifestyle. They coming back into schools with a sense of I can't wait, and anticipation of just being more relaxed in that situation. But what has happened in between all of that is they need to actually get back on the horse and start working again. They need to bridge the gap of the knowledge that they've missed. So the youth development workshop is teaching them tools like time management and goal setting on how to achieve that, because now they're inundated with lots of homework trying to cover up the remedial education that wasn't done last year, or that some people just didn't have privilege to online. We must realize that a lot of children would
their kids and having no idea of where to start, especially coming from disadvantaged backgrounds and not having the technological resources. It was easy for some parents because if homework is sent to is sent to your child via WhatsApp and you don't even have a smartphone, how would you even begin there? And also there were other equipments and resources that were required, like having to have Wi-Fi. How do you even start there? There aren't even libraries in
certain areas.
It's such a difficult thing to do, and not just the fact of not having libraries, but it was difficult to go out to a library, even if the library was close by because of the hard lockdown. So what can we do to salvage this situation, especially for parents of young children?
So last year in September, I was one of the guest speakers in a global conference on education. And it was called The Second Wave and How Education Was Affected During that time. And I spoke with people across the world in different parts of the world. So we had someone from New Zealand, someone from America. I was representing South Africa in that moment. And what we actually realized is our socioeconomic issues are very, very severe in terms of, you look at those developed countries where you see things like as simple as parents not having data and Wi-Fi to do any online education, which is so common here. It's like 70, I think I did a statistic last year, it was 73% of our population wasn't able to go onto platforms like Google Classrooms and Telegram and so forth, because Zoom, they took a lot of the data. Not to mention then parents did not live in areas that were developed, so electricity was a problem. Things like that.
All right, Shahista, I'm gonna stop you right there. Hold your thought. We're gonna take a quick break and we'll continue.
Okay, no problem.
You are listening to Mariam Makwanda live on Salam Media.
Looking to get your kick? Kiki's have now reopened on 235 Matthews Maiwa Road in Durban. Head on over for the Taste with Kick. We offer something scrumptious for everyone in the family. Wraps, chicken tikka, burgers, tender grills, mocktails, milkshakes, and so much more. Corporate and events catering available. Visit our social media pages for more info or call 031 209 0119. Kiki's, the Taste with Kick.
Motala Perfumes, one of the biggest perfume manufacturing houses in Africa, with a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility specializing in designing, creating, developing and producing new scents and matching designer fragrances for all our stores, as well as private labeling for individuals and companies across Africa. Visit your nearest Motala Perfumes store or visit our website at www.motalaperfumes.com for more information on creating your own brand.
They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet many children go to school hungry because of poverty. Penny Appeal's Breakfast Club aim to get a warm, hearty meal to underprivileged children so they can spend the day prospering in their schoolwork. Help feed a needy learner by visiting our website on www.pennyappeal.org.za or call 031 1100 573 to find out how you can donate. Penny Appeal. Small change, big difference.
Salam Media, a global voice for humanity.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Show with Maria Mokwanda. It is 11:18 on this Tuesday, the 2nd of March, 2021. Still with me in studio is a transformational coach, Shahista Thokan, and we're talking about the youth, issues affecting the youth rather, and the back-to-school workshop and how that can help our youth. Before the break, we were talking about coping mechanisms, what can parents do, and you mentioned about the electricity issues that we have, with ESCOM most recently having implemented load shedding again, and kids are going back to school, and we're still under resourced, and we have to find our way around this. We can't just talk about the problems, but we need solutions.
No, definitely. And I think you must remember last year we had a whole lot of parents who never studied and did their schooling 16 and 15 years prior to them homeschooling their kids. So that idea of how the syllabus and the curriculum has changed since they were in schools, it was very frustrating for a lot of parents.
Yeah.
And they could not cope. So this year, I think one of the coping tools that I would say, and one of the methods I think that have changed is we have the schooling system, which are now more involved. Children are back to school. Use the teachers as much as you can in terms of questioning them and asking them for the help in those gaps of the education. It's simple things like you not being able to teach your child because you get irritated at them and frustrated at them. Remember, whatever you are projecting onto your child in terms of that subject or that lack of knowledge on your part, they seeing you functioning without it, they may think it's irrelevant. So they may lose interest. Secondly, the way you're teaching to them, your method, your tone, your style, you may get agitated at times. That will make them block this entire process out as well and become very stressed out and then not absorb the knowledge. So again, don't put yourself in a situation of trying to take control as you did last year. I think ease the reins a bit and use the stakeholders now of the education that are involved. And with online, we've got access to resources. We've got access to online tuition, which is free. For many, that's not available. However, for most of us, I think that are online, we can access these type of tools.
Yeah, no, that's true. I can imagine how parents, if you left school 12 years ago and you have to go and help a grade 4-year-old, a grade 4 student with work, with math, it's like, oh, we didn't even do this in grade 4.
And as a teacher myself, I find when I teach my own children, I don't have the patience I necessarily have in my
Uh-huh.
classroom. I think also is because we, as teachers, we separate work day and home life. We try to strike that balance, and therefore that role of being a teacher at home doesn't necessarily fall into like a natural process. For some teachers, though, they enjoy educating their own children at home. But for me personally, yeah, I think it's just a personality type. And a lot of parents don't have that ability to convey and that knowledge to their children and that information, and it's okay. We're not all meant to be in certain professions, and that's why we choose our career paths according to our personalities.
All right. And now, who is this workshop for?
So the workshop is aimed at youth in general, and it's a large umbrella because what I've done is I've isolated the 4 Saturdays of the month of March into the 4 age categories and genders. So I've got the 6 to 9-year-olds, which is the first Saturday at 2 different times to accommodate for COVID. Alhamdulillah, the response has been good, so I was able to do that. The second one was 10 to 13-year-olds. So we've got a boys session and a girls session on the one Saturday in different times. And then it's 14 to 17-year-old girls and boys. So that makes it 4 because I've moved the one lot over to another Saturday. It's a 3-hour workshop in which the development would be as though I am workshopping with normal kids activities. There would be some structured work and then non-structured conversational work where my coaching would come into play. I am providing lunch and drinks because kids love to just come to a party. And I think as women with high T's, when we attend, I think we look forward to that the most. So I thought, why not in this development program, make it like a 3-hour, very relaxed type of environment where the children are going to open up to me. Remember, again, because numbers are restricted, I'm able to focus on their individuality. So a lot of the children that are attending, their parents have prompted me and said, Shahista, my child went through this, or this is what my child is going through currently. And that's why I'm able to address them in the certain situations. There will be techniques taught to them in the different brackets of confidence and stress, so that when they leave the workshop, they have tools on how to practice it. Of course, it will take a lot from them and their parents to make sure that these things are in play. But I think just attending something like this for them opens their minds up to the availability of help. Yeah.
And I'm glad that there are options for younger kids as well, because I think that we tend to forget them.
Yeah.
And then we just focus on the bigger kids, the older kids, the teenagers, but they need these life skills as well.
Look, I do believe that kids are resilient. So I don't necessarily ask or I actually tell my parents, don't guilt yourself into what's going on at home too much. But your children are resilient. However, the younger ones, they are more observant and they are more listeners. And when they take in what's going on at home, it may not necessarily affect them at that moment or in that year or in that next year. But going forward, it is a conditioning of their upbringing that leads into their teenage years. So when I meet my teenagers, I see that a lot of the fixing has to go back into what they've already pre-understood or learned and unlearn that type of behavior.
Yeah. Wow. This is definitely going to be an interesting one. And quickly share your contact details with our listeners and viewers.
Okay. So it's Shahista Thokan on Instagram. That's my handle. And my cell number is 072-565-1265. The youth development workshops will happen in March, and inshallah, I'm planning in August as well. So it'll be a 2-journey step. It is open to the public, anyone. I've got separation of genders. I've got mixed groups. So it's very personalized, tailor-made for the parents themselves, dealing with the issues of self-confidence and expression, anxiety and stress, time management and goal setting. We've got peer pressure and bullying. So the larger components of their mental and emotional wellness, inshallah.
And definitely COVID compliant, just in case you're wondering. All right, Shahista, shukran for your time and for joining me today. And good luck with the workshop.
Jazakallah so much, Mariam, and thank you so much for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. That was a transformational coach, Shahista Thokan, talking to us about the issues affecting the youth in general. And, I'm sure Parents now have a different idea of what is affecting their kids, whether they are young kids or a little bit older kids, because of the situation that we've been forced in with the pandemic. But alhamdulillah, things are there for a reason and we are meant to learn, because if we did not have this pandemic, we would have probably continued with the way we were doing things. And you know how it's how the conversations are, oh, we didn't have this in our days, we didn't do this in our days. Well, it's time to get with the program and with the times and do things of this time and not things of yesteryear. Anyways, it is 11:27. If you have any further comments, questions, queries, or suggestions, please send them to us on WhatsApp. The number 0617 follow us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Salam Media. And you can also listen live, www.salammedia.com. And if you've missed this, it is on Facebook. So relax. We will be right back.